Hello everyone and welcome to our third online lesson together. This week we have been discussing the buildings of the British Iraqi architect Zaha Hadid and specifically admiring them for their sculptural qualities. And now we're going to do an exercise which involves making paper sculptures inspired by the work of this architect. So when I say inspired by, that means that we will be taking inspiration from the shapes and the forms and the lines of her work, but we won't necessarily be making exact copies of her buildings. For this project, you will need 2 A4 pieces of paper, preferably plain paper, but lined paper will do. I actually didn't have any A4 paper lying around at home, so I had to neatly cut out 2 bits of A4 paper from the back of my art sketchbook, which, if you have to, you can do, and scissors and glue. We're going to start by taking our A4 pieces of paper and cutting them into squares. And we can do this by folding the shorter side of the piece of paper along the longer side of the paper, and then cutting out the little bit that stands out, as you can see I'm doing in the video below. If you don't have scissors, that is okay, because we can still neatly tear the paper by folding it several times in both directions, scoring it with our fingers and nails, and then very carefully tearing it apart, as I've also demonstrated in the video below. After we've made 2 squares from our A4 bits of paper, we're going to cut 1 square in half down the fold line, creating 2 triangles. We're also going to make 2 smaller squares using one of the offcuts from our first bit of paper, using the same technique again, as you can see below. And with the other offcut piece of rectangular paper, we're going to cut it down the middle neatly to create 2 strips of paper. So now you should have a range of strips which look something like this. You can pause the video and resume it once you have got something similar to this image. Okay, so once you have your shapes, we are going to start transforming them into sculptural objects inspired by the forms we see in Hadid's buildings. And we're going to do this through folding, gluing and cutting. So I'm just experimenting here with no specific outcome or process in mind. I'm trying to turn every cut out shape of paper into something sculptural and something 3-dimensional which stands up on its own. And what we want to do is turn every single piece of paper we have on our table into a 3D sculptural object. Just like in Hadid's buildings, we want to create a variety of shapes. Some shapes can be angular, geometric, and with lots of straight lines, and other shapes can be curved and have a kind of bend to them or a twist in them. Just try not to scrunch your paper or to crease it, because we want really nice crisp surfaces on our final sculpture. And I recommend making triangle type shapes because those become quite structurally strong and hold their shape very well. Do your own experiments and create your own shapes through exploring what you can do with paper, cutting it, folding it, gluing bits together, just to see what you can come up with. If you want to make a spiral kind of shape, a good trick to do that is to roll a long piece of paper around a pencil, and then once you let it go, there will be a natural curve in the paper. So here are the shapes, the sculptures which I made. You can pause your video now and resume it once you've transformed all the bits of paper on your table into sculptures. Okay, now you should have a range of small sculptures in front of you. We're going to turn these into one big sculpture. And we're going to do this by playing around and trying to figure out ways in which we can fit them together. And just like I'm doing, just testing things out, seeing what fits where, what nicely combines. Once we find two sculptures we'd like to join together, we can glue them together. And because we're working with sculpture now, we need to think about weight and balance and gravity. So I recommend finding a sturdy looking piece of sculpture to sit at the bottom and to attach things to, because if you stick something heavy to something which looks a bit flimsy, the sculpture will fall over. You want something strong at the bottom which you can start attaching more bits to. And keep an open mind, there's no right and wrong way to do this, and your final sculpture can look like anything. So here is my finished sculpture, and as you can see I've photographed it from a few different angles because when you're working with sculpture it's important to remember that they look different from different sides and different angles, and I wanted you to get a good sense of what it looks like in its entirety. So once you finish watching this video, please finish making your sculptures, and then once they're finished, please upload them so that the class can get a sense of what everyone's doing and we can share the great work that you're all making. Thank you very much for taking part in today's activity. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know any feedback you have. Thank you.